Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, John Davis. I'm one of the owners here at 360 Health and Performance Medicine, and I wanted to take a second to talk about research lab chemicals. This is a question that we get frequently from patients who either have heard from a friend that they're taking, they've gotten access to all the GLP-1s and they've gotten access to all the growth hormones, even ones that are in Group 2 with the FDA, through peptide sciences or other research lab chemical labs. One of the challenges with research chemicals is that there's a process of regulation that goes into what is required for any sort of medication to be consumed by a human. There's certain types of testing and there are certain compounding requirements that are overseen by what's called the Board of Pharmacy as set out by the FDA. So even though we go back and forth on our approval of some of the decisions around the FDA, safety and efficacy in your medications is one of the things that the Board of Pharmacy regulates. Board of Pharmacy regulates all compounders in every state. There's a different board for each state, and they are in charge of making sure that the compounders that are making the medications that you're taking are making them in a safe and effective way that's been prescribed. So, research labs are not overseen by any regulatory body. So what does that mean? A compounder is responsible for whatever is in the bottle that you receive from them. So if you get a semaglutide, or if you get a hexarelin sermorelin, or if you get an NAD plus that says it's a specific dose and it's got X amount of these active ingredients, then the compounding pharmacy is responsible for ensuring that that is exactly what you get. They're regularly audited for this and they're regularly tested for this, because if a compounder is compounding medications that are not being produced with the prescribed methods and do not have what they say they have in them, they're held liable. Now, research chemical labs are a little bit different. They are designed to basically say, these are for people that are running tests on your pet iguana or your hamster, and you want to see what happens when you do these at-home experiments. They require no sort of health liability for what's actually in the bottle. And a lot of the testing that companies that launch misinformation campaigns like Novo Nordisk with GLP-1s, they do testing on what's called black pharmacies, which are these dark pharmacies, these chemical research labs, where people are buying chemicals. And so when you see studies that come out that say, GLP-1 medications from compounders showed to have very little actual GLP-1 in them, or were not compounded with a lot of the active ingredient in it, those studies are 9 out of 10 times conducted on black pharmacies, not on legitimate compounding pharmacies. So, the question comes back to, is it risky for me to take a peptide or a GLP-1 medication that I bought from a black pharmacy instead of a clinic? So the benefit, of course, is you're going to save some money, right? You're going to save a little bit of money by going through a research lab. You also don't have to get a clinical visit from a physician or a practitioner. You don't need to submit blood work. So it's really just commerce. Now, that's also very scary, because these are still medications that you're injecting into your body. And most of us are not physicians, and actually most physicians and clinicians are not specialized in this science. So I don't know that you necessarily want to be self-diagnosing and self-dosing these medications, even if you know for a fact that they are safe and effective from a legitimate compounder, especially if you don't know if they're safe and effective from a black pharmacy or a chemical research company. The risk is always yours. Everything when it comes to your health is always your own risk and reward, right? So if you decide, okay, I'm worth the risk, most often you probably won't actually get hurt, but you actually won't get much of anything. It's sort of a coin toss whether or not you get what you say you purchased. So generally, we always encourage patients, look, the investment that you make in yourself is worth finding a legitimate compounder. Now, clinics do price gouge dramatically. We've spent a lot of time making sure that our prices are reasonable and sustainable for our patients, so that they don't shave off the ability to be on a sustainable program, because most of these programs work best when they're maintained. It's not to discredit the very real challenge of finding clinics that are not overpricing their products, although there are clinics like ours out there that are really committed to fair and responsible pricing. But it's still not worth the risk to say, okay, well, I'm going to spend the $70 instead of the $200, but then it turns out that the $70 you spent was basically on water with some powder, as opposed to whatever it is that you were under the impression that you were taking. The other side of that is that, let's say you do take it and you get sick. that is 100% your liability. That is your health to manage afterwards, because right on the bottle, for every bottle, it says not for human consumption. So if you go into the hospital and you get sick from one of these medications that you've taken from a black pharmacy, you're not liable, or you're not legally able to pursue any sort of litigation for your health for the irresponsible compounding that took place, because the bottle says, hey, this is not for humans to be using. And that's a disclaimer that says we are not overseen, we are not regulated, and so as a result, these medications are not for you to be taking. Now, of course, we know there's a little bit of a finessing, finagling of a system, exploiting a loophole there. This is 100% the intention of the companies, to sell to other humans for usage, to be able to undercut the system. But there is a proper way to do things that takes your health into consideration. And so anytime we're looking at long-term investment in our health, we got to say, what is the risks I'm willing to take, and what is the value of the investment that I make in myself, so that I can make sure that I'm ensuring my health, my safety, and my longevity. So that's a little bit about chemical research companies. You are always, welcome to try and explore whatever it is that you want. But as a clinic that is really committed to your health, really committed to your safety, we always say, take the step to make sure that whatever you're putting in your body, is what you think you're putting in your body. I hope this helps, and look forward to talking to you soon.